I love an Albatros, but as paint schemes go, I am not exactly wild about this one. We're going to fix that. What's up, everybody? You're watching Model AV8R. My name's Adam, and this week we have got a pretty cool project for you. I picked this thing up last year, browsing around a local hobby shop. Turns out the owner of the hobby shop had gone to an estate sale and bought a gentleman out that had he'd passed away unfortunately, and had about 250 brand spanking new foamies that he had collected over about 10 years. He'd gotten to the point where he couldn't fly anymore, but he liked to assemble foamies and just own them, so he had rooms full of these things. This is essentially a brand new ParkZone Albatros, which has been discontinued now for 8 to 10 years. I had one when they were new, a great flying airplane. I've never been crazy about this particular paint scheme. It's not that it looks bad, it's just not very realistic. This cream color on the fuselage is supposed to be wood, doesn't really look anything like wood. We're going to change that. So between Heidi and myself, mostly Heidi, to be honest with you, because she is the artist of the family and she's going to do most of the paint work. What we're going to do, starting at the front, I'm going to put a Zor Scimitar World War I actual wooden propeller on this thing, which will look a whole lot better than this plastic thing it's got on it now. We're going to leave, we are, by the way, trying to depict a specific full-scale Albatros we found pictures of. We're going to leave the red nose, we're going to leave the red tail. Heidi is going to paint the fuselage and actually make it look like polished wood. Going to put some grain in it. Should be really cool looking. We're going to make this look like polished aluminum, detail the engine, detail the guns. She is going to do a really cool camo on the tops of the wings. Germany in World War I, they had some interesting camo. They had some really busy stuff, some pretty subdued stuff. This is a more subdued as far as the pattern. It's the bigger pattern, but they used purple and green, which is really interesting and made it look really, really cool. So that's what she's going to do. Of course, we'll kind of oil up and detail the radiator a bit. I may even get crazy and do flying wires. At that point, I think this thing is going to be a completely different airplane. So we're going to show you a bunch of views of before and after. We'll show you a little bit of the process. And, of course, we'll end it with a flight of our new Albatros. So check this out. So we're going to get to the painting. And I go to take the airplane apart, make it easier for Heidi to paint it. And I can't get it apart. Apparently the gentleman that assembled this airplane used CA to permanently attach most of the screws. I can get the wheel collars loose, pull the wheels off. I can get the spinner off, thank goodness. The prop nut I can get off. I can't get the lower wing off. I can't loosen the cabanes, and I can't loosen the main gear without tearing the airplane up. I'll put as much pressure on it as I feel comfortable doing, and they are not coming out of there. So that makes painting this thing an order of magnitude harder for Heidi because it's going to have to be done assembled. Now, thankfully, our plan is to brush it anyway. Albatrosses were actually sprayed at the factory, but when they would go to the various Jostas, wherever they were stationed, I guess you would say, individual fighter pilots would personalize those planes and sometimes dramatically change the paint schemes, and this was done in the field by brushing it. So that's what we're going to do. And this is what we're starting with. The ParkZone Albatros is actually a depiction of an Albatros that Manfred von Richthofen flew with Josta 11. It is Albatros DB 1033/17. This is what we're going to turn it into. This is also an Albatros, another DV that Richthofen flew with Josta 11. This is Albatros 4693/17, and Richthofen scored aerial victories 58 and 59 in this airplane. So we think that is a much better looking paint scheme, much brighter. It's really different. Love the green and purple camo. It's going to be cool. So that's the paint scheme we have planned, and Heidi's going to get to it and we're going to show you. So here we go.
I am going in to the lines in between the wood panels on the plane, and I'm adding a darker brown paint to accent the different panels, so then I can go in and put the texture on the actual panels, and I already have the dark lines established.
Not being able to take it apart's a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. Having to work around the wings makes it rather difficult. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I really don't like the color of the paint that is supposed to be the wood. I don't think it's the right color, but it is a good base. So I'm coming in and I'm going with a yellow ochre and doing a dry brush to weather the wood before I do the texture on the top, kind of as a first layer. Okay, so in the second layer here, I've gone in with a little raw sienna. It's a little deeper brown to lay in some streaks to create the wood grain texture. And then I'm going in with a little burnt sienna and highlighting the darkness of the edges of all of the panels. Okay, so now we are starting the camo, and I went in and drew the lines with a charcoal pencil where the purple and green are going to separate. This is just the first coat, like a base coat, and then after I've mixed up the green, I'll have all the coats done on the purple, and I'll butt the green up against the purple. Okay, so I finished the purple, and the purple color is a mix of ultramarine violet, alizarin crimson, and warm gray. And right now I'm working on the green, and the green is a mix of sap green, warm gray with a little raw sienna mixed in. The trickiest part so far has been working around the decals. We elected not to remove the iron crosses so we could avoid having all the extra body work to do. So I still need to go in and work around these red spots to finish off the decal area. Alright, I've gone in on the engine, and on the top of the engine I've done a little bit of silver mixed with a little black to make a more subdued silver, and accented the top along with the end of the gun. And over here I have used a kind of a bronze, muted bronze and copper and gray mixture to make it kind of look like rust.
Alright, Heidi has finished the paint scheme. We did want to show you every little detail she did, so we're going to save some stuff for the actual reveal of the plane when it's finished, but I threatened in the intro to possibly wire this thing up with flying wires, and because Heidi did such a phenomenal job on the paint, I just feel like it'd be a crime if I didn't. So I have a really creative, cool way of doing that with a park flyer. I'm going to share that with you now, but I need to point out a couple things. Looking at where the wires attach in all our reference material, I've got 3 different pictures here from different angles on an Albatros. We're really in luck with this model. When you are attaching your anchor points for your cables or your flying wires, you can't really screw that stuff into foam. If all you have there is foam, you have to make something to screw those screws into, those self-tapping screws. Hard plastic works great, and with this airplane we're in luck, because here, here, and here, which are all different attach points for some of the wires, even up front, there's a couple wires that attach up here on an Albatros, we have hard plastic to screw into, so that is awesome. And the only thing we're going to have to do as far as making an anchor point is going to be right here about the middle of the cord of the wing, just before the fuselage. I think the wires that attach there, I think there are 4 that attach there, attach in the full-scale airplane obviously to the main wing spar. So that is the one thing I have to make. So I'll fabricate something. We'll get that figured out. We'll show all that to you. We're going to start with the materials we're going to use. So here we go, wiring this thing up. Alright, so we're going to show you the materials that we're going to use. First things first, anytime you're going to rig an airplane that's not set up for it with flying wires, you have to do your research. So we've got a series of photos that show us the position of the wires on an Albatros. So that's the first thing. This is from an FMS PT-17, the old 1.1 meter PT-17 they used to make. This is the rubber cord and spring system that they used to make the flying wires on that plane. This is some bright silver elastic cord we got from Michaels. These are some jeweler chain tabs. These are some small #1 1/4" black oxide Phillips head screws we got from Micro Fasteners. And right here you can kind of see close-up view of what the jeweler tabs and the Micro Fastener screws look like. That is the stuff we're going to use to rig this thing, and now we'll show you what we're going to do with it. Alright, so first things first, once I know all the positions that I need my flying wires to go, I have to get one of the jeweler chain tabs there as an anchor to attach the wires to. So the first step, once we know the places that we are going to put them, is to take our pin vise with this tiny little bit and alright, so that's our hole. Now I've got another one that I need to do right behind it for a different position, but we're just going to show you kind of how the whole thing goes together. So the next step is to take our jeweler's tab, and we know that it has to be at an angle. So we're going over here, so I'm going to bend that tab up just a bit. That looks about right. Sometimes this is fiddly. We'll put our screw in the larger of the two holes on the tab. And then we screw it in. And there you can see what we have. You come over to the front where we're going to attach it, and there are the two tabs on the front of the plane. So the next step is to make a wire for the brackets that we've just installed. Now I've got my bag of springs, I have my bag of the rubber cord, but I really want to use this elastic bright silver stuff. So I'm going to, let's see, it's unraveling there, so I'm going to cut it right here. And I'm going to kind of measure just a little bit how long I need. I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway because I've got springs on either end. So I'll tie one end off. To one spring. And sometimes this stuff is tedious to work with, but you just gotta kind of bear with it. The end result is definitely worth the trouble. Alright, we'll do one more through. Do kind of a double knot there. That is fiddly. There we go, got it. Alright, now with the rubber cord, you could cut it and then burn it with a lighter to kind of tighten that up. And so we'll take the other spring, tie it to the other end, and then we'll get back to you when we go to hook it up. Alright, as you can see, we have our flying wire made now with springs on both ends. It is shorter by design. You have to factor in that you have springs on both ends as well as you're using elastic cord. So that will certainly tighten things up. Yet it won't be so tight because it is elastic cord and springs so as to put undue stress on your mounting points, and in the wind it will give and still not put stress on your mounting points. And there's our flying wire. The only thing that we're going to do in addition to this is take thin CA and just seep it on those knots. That will soak the fraying that you see and get the fraying away and keep those knots from ever coming loose. And you can still, anytime you need to remove the flying wire, just simply unhook it with the spring. Quick, easy, simple, and doesn't cost a lot of money. Alright, so I made two little brackets for each side. These are actually going to go right there on the plane. That will be the point at which the wires attach from up here and come down, as well as the wires that attach up here and come down to there. And let me see if I can hold the camera and do this and it not be completely awkward here. Of course, those are going to be painted black, but when they're in place, it's going to be something like that. And here we are, all done. It is always great to get to the end of a project like this. It's such a fun process, but it's even more fun to see the fruits of your labor assembled, ready to go, finished, and see it in the air. And you're going to see that very quickly. But first, I have to give my wife a shout out. The work she did on this airplane, considering that it was assembled the entire time and we couldn't take these parts off and individually paint them, which would have made it so much easier. The positions that I watch that woman put herself in to get that brush where it needed to go and do all this detail work with the airplane together is just amazing, and I really appreciate it. It looks stunning. The flying wires were pretty easy to do, really, and I love the way that the elastic silver came out. It looks like actual steel wire, which is awesome. So yeah, we're just really pleased with this thing. It flies as good as it looks. It has been so nice to be able to take all of you from start to finish on a project. We've had project videos before, but you were seeing airplanes that we did, you know, beforehand, before the channel started, and we're telling you about it. You actually got to see the process this time, and that's really cool. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll enjoy this flight. What you're going to see now is me doing the best job I can to present this as scale as possible. This is a scale albatross flight. Hope you like it. Yeah, hope I did it justice. So let us know what you think. Give us the thumbs up if you like it. Leave us a comment. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. With that, we'll leave you with the flying, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Take care. The Albatros is a great flyer. One of the things I was pleased to find back when I owned my first one, and this one flies the same, is that they require a lot of rudder, as World War I airplanes do. I've talked about using rudder with World War I airplanes. Really, you should use rudder with everything, but I've specifically mentioned it regarding this genre of airplanes, and we've had some comments in other videos about maybe using differential. And with this airplane, there is some differential mechanically built into it. However, with most World War I airplanes, there's so much adverse yaw that differential alone doesn't do the job. You still need to coordinate a good bit of rudder. I even initiate the turns with an airplane like this with the rudder. I like the fact that they fly differently, and it's not like everything else that you fly. That's one of the attractions, one of the many attractions to the genre for me, is the fact that it's a different skill set. I like that. The other thing to keep in mind is that differential in ailerons wasn't invented until well after World War I. Airplanes didn't have differential into the late 30s. J3 Cubs don't have differential. So it just required rudder skill. So bear in mind that while differential can help, it may not always fix the problem, and if you have rudder skills, you don't need differential at all. Your rudder skills alone can net you coordinated turns. I'm always amazed at the payoff flying an airplane that you put a little work into, the way we did with this Albatros. Coat of paint, some flying wires. It's changed the entire personality of the airplane. I've got quite a few hours flying ParkZone Albatrosses over the years, and the changes we made to this airplane, I don't know what it is. It's hard to articulate it, but I had more fun flying this one than I ever did flying any other Albatros before. When it comes to World War I planes, I'm a bit of a purist. I like a tail skid rather than a tail wheel because back then that's what they had. But those can be problematic. I know you've all seen videos of World War I airplanes coming into land and ending up on their back. Well, two things that I've learned about landing World War I airplanes to prevent that. One is just don't even think about a crosswind. Headwinds are fine, calm conditions are fine. If it's a crosswind, just don't do it. The second thing is three-point the airplane. When you come into land with a tail skid, if you three-point it, The first thing that does for you is it gets the airplane slower. The second thing it does is it gets that tail skid on the ground quicker so that it's creating friction and pulling the plane to a stop. If you do that, that really betters your chances of keeping the rear end of that thing from going astray and putting side force, side load on the tires, and that is typically what causes you to turn it over. Here we have a bonus takeoff and landing for you. Our first takeoff was from the 3-point position. On that one, we let the tail come up and rode the mains for just a sec before we pulled it off. And the landing you're going to see is just a constant radius short approach. With an airplane like the Albatros, you've got that big engine and a lot of obstructions right in front of you from the pilot's perspective. So in order to keep the target, which is the end of the runway, in sight, you would either need to slip the airplane or do this so that you could see the end of the runway out the side of the plane until the point that you were lined up. Folks, we hope you enjoyed this. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.